The crystalline vessel drifted through the darkness of space, its once gleaming hull now dulled by cosmic dust and micro-impacts. Inside, the Zarkili family huddled together in their mineral-enriched chamber, their faceted bodies dimming with each passing cycle. The youngest, barely larger than a human's thumb, flickered weakly in its growth matrix. Life support at 12%, the ship's system announced in their crystalline language, the sound resonating through their bodies. Elder Xerix shifted their primary consciousness node toward their mate, Nexer, who cradled their failing child. The Maratians turned us away. Xerix's voice chimed softly. The Vulturi sealed their borders. Even the Silicon Collective rejected us. Their words carried harmonics of despair, sending ripples through the chamber's atmosphere. The middle child, Lyra, pressed closer to their parents, their crystal structure pulsing with anxiety. Why do they fear us? The healers certified us free of the shatter plague. Their question hung in the recycled air, unanswered. A warning tone echoed through the ship. Power reserves critical. Main drive failing. The lights flickered, and the temperature began to drop. In response, the family's crystal matrices contracted, trying to conserve energy. Nexer adjusted their position, attempting to share what little thermal energy they had with their youngest. Perhaps we should power down our consciousness centers, they suggested, their voice carrying the deep resonance of protection and fear. We could preserve life support for a few more cycles. Before Xerix could respond, an unexpected sound cut through their ship's failing systems. At first, it seemed like background radiation static, but then it clarified into a clear signal. Unknown vessel, this is New Horizon Station. We've detected critical systems failure. Do you require assistance? Over. The family's crystals brightened momentarily with hope, but experience had taught them caution. Xerix moved to the communication array, their crystalline form casting prismatic patterns across the walls. New Horizon Station. We are. They hesitated, remembering previous rejections. We are refugees. Zarkili. Our child requires immediate medical attention. The silence that followed felt eternal. The youngest's light dimmed further, and Nexer let out a harmonic of distress. Then the response came, carried on a warm human voice that somehow made their crystal matrices resonate with an unfamiliar frequency. Zarkili vessel, we're sending coordinates now. Our medical bay is prepping for silicon-based life forms. Don't worry about protocols or paperwork. Just follow our guidance beacon. Lyra's crystal structure brightened. They're not refusing us. But we're. Tracking signal acquired. The ship's system interrupted. Course plotted to human station. Through their viewport, a massive structure emerged from the star-speckled void. New Horizon Station stretched out like a welcoming hand, its solar arrays gleaming in the light of the nearby star. As they drew closer, they saw other ships of various designs docked or moving about, a hub of interstellar activity. Zarkili vessel, we're detecting severe power fluctuations in your drive core, the human controller said. We're extending our energy field. Don't be alarmed by the blue light. A soft edger glow enveloped their ship, and suddenly their power readings stabilized. The temperature began to rise to more comfortable levels, and the youngest one's crystal matrix showed its first signs of strengthening in days. Thank you, Xerix transmitted, their voice carrying harmonics of gratitude and surprise. But you should know. Other stations, they said we were too great a risk. The human's response was immediate and carried a warmth that seemed to penetrate their very crystal structure. The only risk here would be turning away a family in need. We'll have you safely docked in 10 minutes. Medical team is standing by. Welcome to New Horizon Station. As their ship was gently guided into a docking bay, the Zarkili family experienced something they hadn't felt since fleeing their homeworld: hope. In the soft light of the human station, their crystals began to glow just a little brighter. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her hand against the observation window, watching as the crystalline beings emerged from their ship. Their faceted bodies caught the medical bay's lights, sending rainbow cascades across the sterile walls. The sight was breathtaking, but her attention fixed on the smallest crystal form, carried in what appeared to be a mineral-enriched suspension field. Life signs are unlike anything in our database, her colleague Dr. Marcus Webb muttered, eyes fixed on his scanner. Silicon-based, but their crystal structure is far more complex than any recorded species. Sarah nodded, already moving toward the airlock. Their little one is failing. Look at the dimming pattern in the core matrix. She grabbed a modified environmental suit, designed specifically for handling exotic life forms. Tell engineering to start pumping mineral-enriched atmosphere into Chamber 3. And get me Dr. Rodriguez from Geology. The airlock cycled, and Sarah stepped through into the quarantine zone. The Zarkeli family turned toward her, their crystalline bodies humming at a frequency she could feel in her bones. The tallest one, the elder, according to the scan, shifted protectively in front of the others. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen," she said, her voice soft but clear. "We're going to help your child. Can you tell me when the dimming began?" The elder's crystal structure vibrated, producing words in surprisingly clear standard. 3 cycles ago. After the Malaysian medical station turned us away. Their facets darkened. They said adapting their equipment for silicon-based life wasn't worth the resources. Sarah's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "Well, we're not them. Chamber 3 is ready. It's equipped with mineral-rich atmosphere and variable pressure systems." She gestured toward the opening doors. "We'll adjust everything according to your needs." The middle child moved forward, their crystal structure brightening with curiosity. "You created a chamber for us, but you didn't even know we were coming." "We maintain facilities for all known life forms," Sarah explained, leading them toward the chamber. "And we adapt quickly for new ones. Humanity learned long ago that compassion needs to be universal, not selective." Inside Chamber 3, the engineering team had already transformed the space. Crystalline formations lined the walls, refracting light in patterns that seemed to make the Zarkeli family's own structures pulse in response. Dr. Rodriguez stood at the environmental controls, his fingers dancing across the interface. "Atmospheric mineral content at 60%, he reported. "Temperature stable at their optimal range. We're ready to begin treatment." The family settled onto the crystal-studded floor, their bodies seeming to relax as they absorbed the enriched atmosphere. Sarah moved closer, her scanners working overtime to analyze the youngest's failing matrix. "The core structure is unique," she murmured, then looked up at the parents. "Your child's crystal pattern. It's different from yours. Is that normal for your species?" The one holding the child. Sarah's scanner identified them as Nexer, chimed softly. "No. Our child was born as the Shatter Plague began affecting our world. They are part of the last generation. Different. The Silicon Collective called them imperfect." "Imperfect." Sarah's voice carried a note of challenge. "Look at these patterns." She projected a hologram of the child's crystal structure. "This isn't imperfection. It's adaptation. Your child's matrix is more resilient than traditional formations. They're not dying. They're evolving." The chamber filled with a resonant hum as the family processed this information. The youngest's crystal structure suddenly pulsed brighter, responding to Sarah's voice. "Evolution." The elder Zyrix chimed thoughtfully. "The very thing our species feared might be our salvation." Sarah smiled, already formulating treatment plans. "That's the thing about evolution. Sometimes the best path forward looks nothing like the road behind. Now let's help your little one grow into whatever brilliant form they're meant to become." Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez nearly dropped his coffee when the readings first appeared on his screen. He blinked, checked the data again, then grabbed his tablet and ran toward Chamber 3. The night shift hadn't been particularly exciting until now, but what he just discovered would change everything. Inside the chamber, the Zarkeli family rested on their crystalline bed, their structures glowing softly in the mineral-rich atmosphere. The youngest one's light had stabilized over the past few days, but hadn't strengthened as much as Dr. Chen had hoped. "Dr. Chen," Marcus called through the intercom. "You need to see this." He pulled up the wavelength analysis from the past 24 hours. Look at their resonance patterns when Jessica was singing to them during her maintenance check. Sarah leaned closer to the screen, her eyes widening. The crystal matrices. They're amplifying and stabilizing. But how? A soft humming filled the air as Jessica, the maintenance technician, entered the chamber for her regular checks. The effect was immediate. The Zarkelli family's crystal structures brightened, their patterns shifting subtly to match the frequency of her tune. "That's it," Marcus exclaimed, his fingers flying over his tablet. "Their molecular structure responds to sound waves. Not just any sound, specifically human vocal frequencies." He projected a holographic model showing the resonance patterns. "Look how their crystal matrices realign themselves." The middle child, Lyra, shifted toward the humans, their facets catching the light. The song vibrations, they chimed softly. They feel like home. Like the crystal chorus of our ancient gathering places. Sarah's face lit up with understanding. "Of course, your species communicates through crystalline resonance. Human voices must create harmonic patterns similar to your natural frequencies." She turned to Marcus. "We need to set up a proper acoustic environment. Can you?" "Already on it," he grinned, pulling up the station's engineering schematics. "We can modify the chamber structure to amplify and direct specific sound frequencies. Turn the whole room into a healing instrument." Over the next few hours, the chamber transformed. The engineering team installed resonance panels tuned to specific frequencies, while Dr. Chen coordinated with the station's musicians and sound specialists. Even the crystalline formations they'd originally installed for atmosphere were repurposed as natural amplifiers. The youngest Zarkelli watched with growing brightness as humans came and went, each adding their own voice to the symphony of healing. A children's choir visiting the medical bay stopped to sing, their pure voices sending ripples of light through the alien family's crystal structures. An old maintenance worker shared ancient sea shanties while adjusting the acoustic panels. Even the station's computer systems were reprogrammed to maintain a constant, subtle harmonic frequency. "Your voices," Elder Zyrix observed, their tone carrying wonder. "They're all slightly different, yet they work together. Like the crystal harmonies of our world, before the Shatterplague." Marcus adjusted one final setting and stepped back to admire their work. "Humans have always known the healing power of music," he explained. "We just never imagined we'd be using it quite like this." The chamber had become a cathedral of sound and light. As different frequencies combined, the Zarkelli family's crystal matrices began to pulse with new strength. The youngest one, especially, showed remarkable improvement, their structure growing and strengthening in time with the harmonies. "Look at these readings," Sarah breathed, watching the data stream across her screen. "Their molecular stability has improved by 40%. The sound waves aren't just supporting their structure, they're helping them rebuild." Jessica, who had started it all with her simple maintenance song, smiled as she watched the light dance through the chamber. "Sometimes the best medicine doesn't come from a lab," she said softly. "Sometimes it comes from the heart." The youngest Zarkelli pulsed brightly in agreement, their crystal structure now humming in perfect harmony with the human voices around them. In the convergence of alien crystal and human song, something new and beautiful was being born. The station's educational pod buzzed with excitement as 20 young students pressed their faces against the observation window of Chamber 3. Inside, Elder Zyrix had arranged their crystal structure into a complex geometric pattern, preparing to demonstrate how their species stored memories. Each facet, Zyrix explained, their voice translated through the chamber speakers, holds countless stories. When light passes through us, it carries these memories. Their body shifted, casting intricate patterns across the chamber walls. 10-year-old Maya Singh raised her hand, barely containing her enthusiasm. "Can you show us what your home looked like before everything happened?" Dr. Chen, standing at the back of the group, started to intervene, worried the question might be too painful, but Zyrix's crystal structure brightened. "Watch carefully," they chimed. Light refracted through their body, and suddenly the chamber filled with holographic images of towering crystal spires that stretched toward twin purple suns. Crystalline beings of various sizes and patterns moved through structures that seemed to sing with color and light. "Wow," breathed Tommy Chen, Sarah's nephew, his eyes wide. "It's like a city made of rainbows." The youngest Zarkeli, now strong enough to maintain their own position, shifted closer to the window. Their newly grown crystal formations caught the light differently than their family members, creating unexpected patterns that danced across the children's faces. "Look," Maya pointed excitedly. "The patterns are different. They're making new colors." Dr. Rodriguez, who had been monitoring the chamber's instruments, suddenly straightened. "Dr. Chen, are you seeing this?" He gestured to his readings. "The children's neural activity is synchronizing with the Zarkeli's crystalline frequencies." Sarah moved closer, studying the data. The children's brainwave patterns showed unusual activity, resonating with the alien family's crystal matrices in ways their adult observers couldn't match. "Your young ones," Nexer observed, moving to join their child at the window. "They see patterns we didn't know existed in ourselves." The youngest Zarkeli pressed a faceted appendage against the window, matching it to Maya's small hand on the other side. Where their crystals caught the light, new formations began to grow, mimicking the spiral patterns of human DNA. "It's beautiful," Maya whispered, "like your crystals are dancing with our molecules." Lyra, the middle child, shifted excitedly. "Elder, look. The new patterns, they're stable." Their own crystal structure began to adopt similar formations, but with unique variations. Dr. Chen quickly documented the changes. The children's presence seems to catalyze their adaptive capabilities, their innocence, their natural acceptance of new patterns. It's helping the Zarkeli evolve. "Perhaps," Elder Zirix hummed thoughtfully. "That is why our youngest survived when others did not. They were born ready to change, and now these human children show them how." The educational session extended well beyond its scheduled time as the children and the Zarkeli family discovered new ways to communicate. The youngest aliens learned human games, their crystal structures creating increasingly complex light patterns to match the children's laughter. In return, they taught the human children how to see the songs hidden in their crystalline forms. As the day drew to a close, Maya lingered at the window. "Will you show us more tomorrow?" she asked the youngest Zarkeli. "I want to learn all your crystal songs." The young alien's response came in a shower of rainbow light that made the children gasp in delight. Sarah watched the interaction with tears in her eyes, remembering how close they'd come to losing this family to fear and prejudice. "You know," Rodriguez said quietly, standing beside her, "we thought we were saving them. But maybe they're teaching us something just as valuable, how to see the universe through new eyes." Through the window, human and alien children continued their silent exchange of light and wonder, each learning from the other in ways neither species had imagined possible. The message arrived during the station's night cycle, a simple transmission that shattered the peace they'd built. Dr. Chen found the Zarkeli family in Chamber 3, their crystalline forms dulled to an ashen gray. "The last crystal towers have fallen." Elder Zyrix's voice barely carried through the mineral-rich air. "Our homeworld is gone." Sarah watched in horror as hairline fractures began appearing across their crystal surfaces. The youngest one's recently strengthened matrix showed signs of destabilization, their rainbow patterns fading to monochrome. "Their grief," Dr. Rodriguez explained, rushing into the chamber with his instruments. "It's not just emotional. The psychic shock is physically damaging their crystal structures." His readings flashed urgent warnings. "We're losing them." The middle child, Lyra, let out a harmonic cry that made the chamber's walls vibrate. All those who remained, our extended crystal matrix, gone. Their form began to splinter at the edges. Sarah pressed her hand against the chamber's wall, feeling helpless. Then she noticed something on Rodriguez's scanner. a slight stabilization in the crystal patterns whenever someone spoke. "Keep talking to them," she ordered, keying her communicator. "Maya, Tommy, get your classmates. We need you in the observation room now." Within minutes, children's voices filled the chamber speakers, their concern and care carrying clearly through the audio system. "Please don't go." Maya's voice trembled. "You haven't taught us all your crystal songs yet." The youngest Zarkali's glow flickered briefly brighter at the sound of their friend's voice. Sarah leaned closer to the family. "Tell us about your world," she urged gently. "Share your memories. Don't let them fade with the crystal towers." Elder Xerx's voice quavered as they began to speak. The Festival of Light, when all the crystal spires would sing together. Their structure stabilized slightly as they projected memories onto the chamber walls. Station personnel began gathering at the observation windows, drawn by the unfolding scene. An elderly maintenance worker stepped forward, his voice rough with emotion. "I lost my home too, in the great earthquakes of 2157. But look around this station. We all came from somewhere else. We all lost something. And we all found something new." The Zarkali's crystal matrices pulsed weakly in response to his words. More station residents began sharing their stories. Tales of lost homes, found families, and rebuilt lives. With each story, the alien structures strengthened almost imperceptibly. Dr. Rodriguez stared at his readings in amazement. The human emotional responses, they're generating unique electromagnetic fields. Something about our empathy resonates with their crystal frequency. The youngest Zarkali pressed close to their family, their structure beginning to emit a soft glow that matched the rhythm of the human voices. New crystal growths formed along their edges, but these weren't the familiar patterns of their homeworld. Instead, they reflected the emotional harmonics of the humans around them. "You see," Sarah said softly, "your world may be gone, but its light lives in you. And here, among us, that light can grow in new ways." Nexer's voice chimed quietly. The Silicon Collective taught that emotional attachment was a flaw, that pure crystal resonance was the only truth. But your species, their structure brightened slightly. You feel so deeply, and instead of shattering, you grow stronger. Through the observation window, Maya pressed her small hand against the glass. The youngest Zarkali moved to mirror her, their crystal surface catching the light in a way that cast a rainbow across the young girl's tear-streaked face. "Sometimes," Sarah explained, watching the exchange, "the greatest strength isn't in refusing to break. It's in learning how to rebuild ourselves, piece by piece, with help from those who care enough to stay." As the station's residents continued sharing their stories, the Zarkali family's crystal matrices slowly stabilized. Their structures would never be the same. Grief had left its marks. But in those changes, something new began to grow, a resilience born from the merger of crystal strength and human heart. The mineral gardens bloomed with crystal formations, a project born from Dr. Rodriguez's midnight inspiration and the station crew's determination. Carefully cultivated mineral structures grew in geometric patterns, creating an environment that merged the best aspects of Earth's gardens with the lost crystal forests of the Zarkali homeworld. "The resonance frequencies are perfect," Sarah said, checking her instruments as the family entered the new space. "How do you feel?" The youngest Zarkali moved forward eagerly, their crystal structure casting ever-changing patterns across the garden's crystalline walls. Where they passed, the mineral formations seemed to sing in response, creating subtle harmonies that made the air itself vibrate with possibility. "It feels like transformation," Elder Xerx observed, their own crystal matrix brightening in response to the environment. "These formations, they carry both our old songs and new harmonies." Maya and Tommy watched from their observation point, faces pressed against the reinforced window. They had been instrumental in designing certain aspects of the garden, their childlike imagination helping create spaces that even the adult Zarkali hadn't considered possible. "Look," Tommy pointed excitedly. "The baby crystal is growing new patterns. Dr. Rodriguez rushed to his monitoring station, eyes widening at the readings. The youngest Zarkali's growth cycle had begun, but it was unlike anything they had documented before. New crystal formations emerged in spiraling patterns that mimicked both DNA helixes and traditional Zarkali matrices. Extraordinary, Sarah breathed, watching the process through specialized scanners. They're not just growing, they're evolving. The crystal structure is incorporating elements of both species' basic patterns. The middle child, Lyra, moved closer to their younger sibling, their own crystal surface beginning to show similar changes. The harmonics here, they're helping us find new ways to grow, ways the Silicon Collective never imagined possible. Throughout the garden, the carefully placed crystals amplified the family's natural frequencies, creating a symphony of light and sound. The youngest one's growth accelerated, their new formations capturing and refracting light in ways that created stunning holographic displays. These patterns, Nexar chimed in wonder, examining their child's new growth. They're stronger than our traditional matrices, more adaptable. The very qualities the collective feared might be our salvation. Sarah noticed something else on her screens. The electromagnetic field your crystals generate. It's stabilized at a frequency that perfectly complements human brainwaves. You're not just adapting to survive here. You're evolving to thrive alongside us. Maya pressed her hand against the window. Can we come in? Please. The crystals sing differently when we're closer. After careful readings confirmed the safety protocols, the children were allowed to enter. The moment they stepped into the garden, the crystal formations erupted in a symphony of color and light. The youngest Zarkali's new growths seemed to dance with joy, creating rainbow patterns that moved in time with the children's laughter. The silicon-carbon resonance is off the charts, Rodriguez muttered, frantically documenting the phenomenon. Their crystal matrix is actually strengthening in response to human presence. It's like they're learning to speak a new language at a molecular level. Elder Xerix moved through the garden, their own structure beginning to show subtle signs of the new growth patterns. Our people always believed that change meant degradation, that protecting our pure crystal forms was the only way forward. We never considered that evolution could make us more than we were. As the human children played among the crystal formations, teaching the youngest Zarkali Earth games adapted for their crystalline form, Sarah watched the readings continue to evolve. In this garden, at the intersection of human ingenuity and alien resilience, something unprecedented was taking root. Sometimes, she said softly, the best way to honor our past is to grow beyond it. To become something new, something stronger, by learning from those who are different from us. The garden filled with light and laughter, human and alien voices creating harmonies that had never existed before in the universe. The message came during the Mineral Garden's morning resonance cycle. Elder Xerix was teaching the human children about crystal harmonics when the station's communication system activated. New Horizon Station. This is refugee vessel Crystal Dawn. A weak crystalline voice transmitted. We detected Zarkali energy signatures. Is it true? Have you found a way to help our kind? Sarah and Rodriguez exchanged glances before Elder Xerix stepped forward, their crystal structure brightening with emotion. This is Elder Xerix of the Crystal Spire family. Your people are welcome here. The humans have helped us not just survive, but evolve. The silence that followed felt eternal. Then another transmission came through, followed by another. Within hours, the station's communication array lit up with signals from scattered Zarkali ships across the sector. We need to expand the mineral gardens, Sarah said, already working on calculations. Rodriguez, can we convert the unused cargo bays? The engineer nodded, his fingers flying over his tablet. Better than that. Look at these designs the children drew up last week. They were playing at being architects, but their ideas, they might actually work. Maya and Tommy's crude drawings showed interconnected crystal chambers, each designed to amplify the natural harmonics they'd observed in their Zarkali friends. The childlike simplicity of the designs revealed solutions the adults had overlooked. It's perfect, Sarah breathed. The crystalline network would be self-sustaining, drawing power from the same resonance frequencies that strengthened their matrices. The youngest Zarkali, now sporting brilliant new growth patterns, moved excitedly through the garden. Their crystal structure had become a marvel of adaptation, equally capable of processing both traditional crystal harmonics and human neural frequencies. "We can help them," they chimed, their voice strong and clear. "Show them how to grow in new ways, like you showed us." Station resources were quickly mobilized. Maintenance crews worked alongside engineers to convert unused spaces into crystalline habitats. The human children, led by Maya and Tommy, dedicated themselves to creating welcome messages in crystal song, their voices helping to stabilize newly arrived refugees. The first refugee ship docked 3 days later. The family aboard was in worse condition than Xyrix had been, their crystal matrices showing severe degradation from long-term space exposure. But the moment they entered the mineral gardens, surrounded by the combined harmonics of human voices and crystal resonance, their structures began to stabilize. "Watch," the youngest Zarkali instructed the newcomers, demonstrating how to adjust their crystal lattices to match the hybrid frequencies. "The humans taught us that change doesn't mean breaking. It means growing stronger." More ships arrived each day. The station's crystal gardens filled with the sound of human children, teaching alien youngsters Earth songs, while Zarkali elders shared ancient crystal harmonies with fascinated human scientists. Each new arrival brought different patterns, different songs, different possibilities for growth. Sarah watched from her observation post as Maya guided a newly arrived Zarkali child through their first growth cycle in the garden. The new child's crystal matrix was already showing signs of the adaptive patterns they'd first observed in their youngest friend. "We never imagined this," Elder Xyrix hummed beside her. "When we fled our dying world, we thought we were running toward our end. Instead, we found a new beginning." Rodriguez joined them, holding up his tablet with the latest scans. The crystalline network is growing stronger with each new arrival. Their combined harmonics are creating completely new growth patterns. It's like watching evolution in real time. Through the garden's crystal formations, the light of nearby stars cast rainbow patterns across faces both human and alien. In those refracted beams, hope took on a tangible form, a bridge between species, built from understanding, strengthened by compassion, and illuminated by the light of countless possible futures. 5 years passed like starlight through crystal. New Horizons Station had transformed beyond recognition, its corridors now lined with living crystal gardens that sang with the combined harmonics of two species learning to grow together. The original mineral garden had become the heart of a vast crystalline network that spanned the entire station. The youngest Zarkali, no longer so young, stood at the observation deck teaching a mixed class of human and alien children. Their crystal structure had grown into a magnificent form that bore little resemblance to traditional Zarkali patterns, yet carried echoes of both species' strength. "Every crystal tells a story," they chimed, their voice carrying the musical quality that had become characteristic of the new generation. Like this one. They projected a memory light that showed their family's battered ship approaching the station 5 years ago. Maya, now 15, watched from beside Dr. Chen. "I still remember the first time I saw them," she said softly. "They looked so dim, so fragile. Now look at them." The station had become known throughout the galaxy as Crystal Haven, a sanctuary where science and compassion worked hand in hand. The Silicon Collective, which had once shunned the refugees, now sent observers to study the unprecedented evolutionary leaps taking place within its walls. "Their latest readings are extraordinary," Sarah told Elder Xyrix as they reviewed the day's data. "The new crystal matrices are 50 times more stable than traditional formations, and the neural crystalline interface grows stronger with each generation." The Elder's structure shimmered with pride. "The children barely remember a time when our species lived apart. To them, this harmony is as natural as breathing is to humans." In the primary garden chamber, Tommy led a group of young Zarkali through a series of sonic exercises, their voices creating patterns of light that danced through the crystal formations. The games they'd invented as children had evolved into sophisticated techniques for strengthening crystal matrices. Dr. Rodriguez, his hair now streaked with gray, monitored the station's crystalline power network. The system they'd developed using hybrid resonance frequencies had revolutionized space station design across human space. Who would have thought, he mused, that the key to our future lay in learning to sing to crystals? The original family gathered in their private garden chamber each evening, maintaining the tradition that had started in those first desperate days. But now their stories were filled with hope instead of loss, their crystal songs carrying dreams of the future rather than echoes of the past. "Look," Lyra chimed, projecting a star chart. "The first colony ships are ready. Humans and Zarkali, going out together to find new worlds where both species can thrive." The youngest one's crystal structure pulsed with excitement. "We'll teach other species what we learned here. That strength comes not from purity, but from adaptation, not from isolation, but from connection." Maya joined them for these evening gatherings, her presence as much a part of their family as any crystal resonance. "Remember when you thought you were the last?" she asked, touching the crystal wall gently. "Now look at us. We're just beginning." Through the station's vast windows, the stars shone bright and clear. Each point of light represented a possible future, a new world where the combined wisdom of humans and Zarkali might take root. The crystal gardens hummed with the songs of both species, creating harmonies that would have been impossible just 5 years ago. "We named this place New Horizon," Sarah said, watching a crystal-powered ship depart for the stars. "I don't think we realized just how fitting that name would become." The youngest Zarkali's crystal structure caught the starlight, sending rainbow patterns dancing across the chamber. In those reflected lights, 2 species saw their shared future, a universe where differences weren't merely tolerated but celebrated, where change meant growth, and where the simple act of helping a stranger could transform entire worlds. Their story had begun with a desperate plea in the darkness. It continued now, written in light and crystal, singing out toward the endless stars.